everybody to the live with the live chat with Tim Tuller, who is our Canon, and we are so glad to have him here to step us through this beautiful, absolutely beautiful opera, Suor Angelica. So we're going to start just with a few basic questions to allow people to join us. Tim, let's do some background on you. Let's do a background check, okay? First of all, Tim, what is a canon?
Oh, you would ask me that. I don't know.
Why do they call you a canon? You know?
I honestly don't know. I don't think anybody does.
Anyway, Tim is officially a canon. So what as a canon?
I think it basically means someone that works directly under the dean type of thing. Usually it's reserved for clergy. Sometimes lay people are given that title, but I think it more or less refers to someone that works directly to reports directly to the dean.
Okay. All right, so let's do a little background. How long did you tell us a little bit about your background at the cathedral and what you do there?
Well, yeah, so I've been here, well, it'll be 17 years in January.
Wow.
And of course I'm the canon for music. So I'm basically just responsible for all the music at the cathedral, all aspects of it. The playing the organ for services and all that, recitals, preparing and maintaining the choir, auditioning, new singers for the choir, planning music, planning anthems, playing hymns, maintaining the instrument maintenance schedules for the organ, all the pianos, bells, and then administering the music series concerts that we host here at the cathedral, things like that. Just generally responsible for all aspects of the music at the cathedral.
Okay. So you've brought some beautiful music to us. Everybody laughs at me because if anybody knows me, they know how I love it. And I have a friend said the reason I'm Episcopalian is because of the music, and that's probably correct. One of the things.
Well, that is the reason I'm an Episcopalian for sure.
I'm telling
my way in the Episcopal Church. There's no question about it. Yeah.
Because I cannot conceive of a service at the church without the music. I just can't. It would be beautiful, I'm sure, but it would be something would be terribly, terribly missing. Tell us a little bit about your opera background, and also when you're talking about opera, maybe give us opera 101 in a nutshell. What is
sure.
opera?
Yeah, sure. Opera, just the word is very intimidating to a lot of people. Understandably so. You think of a 5-hour Wagner opera or something like that, and kind of people just immediately think it's too intimidating of a subject to even begin to get into. It doesn't have to be. I'm not a singer myself, and so I've never sung in any kind of an opera or anything like that, but I've always loved the art form, just like I like all classical music and symphonic music. Opera actually started in the late 16th century in Florence, Italy. And this was during the height of the Italian Renaissance. And there was this group called the Florentine Camerata. And basically what this was, it was a clutch of intellectuals, statesmen, humanists, literary figures, musicians, just general intelligentsia, who would gather at the house of this Count Giovanni de Bardi, I think was his name, something like that. And it was just basically like an intellectual salon that they would hold. And this went on for a number of decades. And one of their big driving forces was they felt that music had gotten too complicated and corrupted over the centuries, got too polyphonic, too complicated. And they wanted to return music to what they thought would have been the music of the ancient Greeks. So since this was the Renaissance, the Italian Renaissance, they had a huge fascination with everything ancient Greek. Okay, that was a defining feature of the Renaissance, obviously. And they wanted specifically to revive ancient Greek drama. And they had reason to believe, and there is good reason to believe, that ancient Greek drama was sung and accompanied by music.
Wow.
Now, of course, even by then, those dramas have been gone for millennia, and we have no way of knowing. They had no way of knowing exactly what that would have sounded like, that music of the ancient Greeks. We have no way of knowing. But they tried to put their heads together and figure out a good estimation of what it might have sounded like. And so that's what they did. And in I've heard 1597, I've heard 1598, but one of those years, the very first opera that you could call an opera was created. Daphne was as you could expect, it was on ancient myths, and most of the early operas were on ancient Greek myths, because they, again, were trying to revive ancient Greek drama. And so thus was born opera. They tried to recreate, revive the drama of the ancient Greeks, which they believed was set to music. And that's how it was born. And then the rest is history. From there, it took right off. And since it was born in Florence, Italy, opera always has been central to Italian music. If you look at all the important, really, Italian composers, specifically Italian composers of the last 400 years, are most all opera composers. And so it was extremely popular, right down, spread through Europe, right to the present day. And of course, volumes could be written about the various strains of opera, and it went off in different directions and different styles and all that kind of thing over the centuries. But so Puccini was in a direct line, several hundred years of Italian opera composers. He succeeded Giuseppe Verdi, who is, you've probably heard of, most of y'all, who was the most important Italian opera composer of the 19th century. And he was considered his successor. And he really brought opera into the 20th century. So, yeah.
That's kind of opera in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's spread.
Right.
All the different countries developed different styles. Your French developed their style. The Germans developed their style. All through Europe. Later on, the English, much later on, the English. But yeah, it was very popular in certain circles from its inception, all through the ages.
Okay, so that's kind of given us an umbrella with which to begin our discussion of this one. And let's start with this. You have joined forces with a organization here in the community called Bold City Opera.
Right.
So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about Bold City Opera?
Yeah.
And how it started, and then when you've done that, tell us about this collaboration that
Sure.
you and Bold City have joined forces with.
Yeah. So Bold City Opera was founded by soprano Christine Alfano, who is actually singing the lead role in this weekend's production. She's going to be Sister Angelica. She's an incredible soprano. Christine actually sang for a couple of years in the Cathedral choir. Just before COVID, I think it was around 2018 till 2020, somewhere around there, the couple of years before COVID descended upon us, she was in the Cathedral choir and sang soprano. She was actually a student of Carol Clifford, who some of you probably know, who also sings in our choir and is a wonderfully renowned voice teacher. So she was a student of Carol's, and she went off to study opera in Knoxville. And she's just going from height to height. She spent her summer in Vienna, I think it was, singing opera and stuff like that. She really and truly is developing into a world-class voice. She recorded a aria for the Pittsburgh Opera last week. I mean, I could see her eventually going to the Met, seriously. She's got that kind of raw material. It's incredible. So she decided that she wanted to form a local opera company because, well, yeah, Jacksonville certainly does not have an opera company. And they wanted to make opera accessible to people in a way that it often is not. And she joined forces with Brandon Smith. Brandon is the organist choir director at San Jose Episcopal. So Christine became the president of Bold City Opera, and Brandon is the vice president, and he's also the conductor for this weekend's performance. And so he's a singer, organist, and he actually went to Ithaca College my alma mater, but he went far later, and he went for his master's, I believe it was, in conducting. And I did my undergraduate there, but we have that in common. We both have history at Ithaca College in upstate New York. So she, when she was putting this together, she asked if I'd join the board. And I said, sure. And they had their first board meeting a year ago, August, I think it was, just after they formed the company. And I was I actually ended up being the secretary. And Christine, again, is the president, Brandon's the vice president, and they've got several other posts on the board now as well. And they started batting around how they could get started, because they had no money at all, no money. And there really is a bootstrap organization. They just wanted to just, dig in and do it however they could do it. And they were thinking of what are some accessible operas that we could perform that wouldn't take a lot of, money and a lot of, elaborate costuming and things like this. Where could we do them? What venues could we do them at that would be accessible? And of course, how would we accompany them? Because a symphony orchestra that would have to accompany most operas is kind of expensive. So that's not going to be an option right off the bat. So they got some ideas. First of all, they thought they'd do an opera called A Hand of Bridge by Samuel Barber. And they've already done this. They actually did it at the Cummer a couple weeks ago with just a keyboard. That's only a 10-minute opera. And so they started about a month ago with that one, and it was just accompanied by the keyboard. It's just a few voices. Like I say, it's 10 minutes long. But they wanted to really kick off their first major piece with Suor Angelica, because it's bigger than A Hand of Bridge, but it still is very much an accessible opera. It's only 50 minutes long, and it's got a reasonably sized cast. It's actually an all-female cast. It was the first opera to be an all-female cast, just some background there. And they had this idea that it could be performed with organ. It actually wasn't my idea. That was actually Christine's idea. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But Brandon, who's very good at musical software, and he's also an organist, undertook to kind of take the piano score for this opera and sort of massage it into an organ score, which he thought he could do that would work. And he worked on that for the better part of a year, and with some input from myself. And we came up with something that works, and works really pretty darn well. And it doesn't hurt the fact that we've got a wonderful instrument here at the Cathedral, a wonderful organ that can really recreate the sound of a full orchestra in many ways. So that was very helpful. So given that this opera is set in a convent, it only made sense that we premiere it in some religious venue, a church. And so they got the idea, well, the cathedral's a church, it's got a good organ, that's where I'm the organist. So let's see if the cathedral will let us do it there.
So that's how it came about, huh?
That's how it came about. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Now we're gonna take, and hopefully this is gonna work. We're gonna take a clip, the first little scene of Suor Angelica. And then we're going to talk just a little bit with Tim about Puccini and how Puccini kind of developed as a composer. Tim has some interesting story about Puccini that y'all don't fall asleep, because it's a good one, okay? And then we're going to just take a look at this, because this is your first little dipping your toe into Suor Angelica. If it comes up, we'll see. Everybody knows how that works. All right. Okay, we're back. This is an introduction to just Puccini, really. Tim, can you start telling us a little bit about Puccini? One of the comments that I was talking to Tim about was that I read was he was the most brilliant film composer never to have written for the silver screen. You can take almost any scene from his operas, and within a short space of time, you will sense exactly what is going on. So can you comment a little on Puccini as a composer and maybe embellish upon that, Tim?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons for his popularity is he does communicate very directly, very, very, very directly with the listener. There wouldn't be film music probably as we know it had it not been for him. And as I also mentioned earlier, there wouldn't probably be Andrew Lloyd Webber without him either. That's for sure. He's one of the reasons he's so popular as a composer is because of his just incredible melodic sense. He could write melodies like nobody ever, and his use of the orchestra to really bring those melodies out was just second to none. There's a lot going on in his music under the surface. He actually, he's considered a conservative composer, generally speaking, very much a 19th century figure, but he did incorporate influences by modern composers such as Stravinsky and Ravel and people like that, Debussy. There were some, the influences on his style were very eclectic. He had some French influences. He even admired Wagner, which if you were in the Italian camp in the 19th century, you wanted to avoid Wagner at all costs because, especially with someone like Verdi, say, who is very popular in the 19th century, he wanted to keep Italian opera style and German opera style just two separate spheres, and ne'er the twain shall meet. There was a bit of a sort of a rivalry going on between those two camps at that time, for sure. But Puccini was influenced by Wagner, and no mistake. And he loved the music of Wagner, was influenced by it. So he had a huge eclectic range of influences. Puccini had been born in 1858, and he died in 1924. And Suor Angelica dates from 1918. So it's pretty late in his career. I think Madame Butterfly had been 1896, Tosca 1900. I'm sorry, La Boheme was 1896, Tosca was 1900, and Madame Butterfly was 1904, probably his three most popular operas. And so by 1918, it was getting kind of long in the tooth. He was, it's very ripe Puccini at this point. But yeah, so his enduring appeal is just his ability to write just unforgettable melodies and arias that often stand alone. I'm sure everyone here, whether they know it or not, knows O mio bambino caro, the aria from Gianni Schicchi. I mean, it's in the popular culture. His music is in the popular culture, and it influenced film composers, composers of Broadway, even things like that, because the music is so immediately, viscerally accessible. That's brought him in for some criticism over the centuries. There's always these camps of fuddy-duddies that think that if music is too popular, there must be something wrong with it. Even Tchaikovsky went through that. There was a time when Tchaikovsky's symphonies were considered, second rate because everybody liked them. And if everybody likes something, it can't be very good. You have to work at it. Music has to be hard, and if it's too immediately accessible, it's too sugary, then there must be something wrong with it. So there's been a camp of critics to his work for that reason, but I don't put much stock in that myself. But that's out there, and that's always been, been an issue with some critics in some camps. Although I think today his reputation is pretty sterling as a composer.
Talk a little bit of course. Now he created the feeling with the music. He came up with the idea, but he didn't write the words. Is that
not always? He did on some of his others.
The libretto, he wrote the libretto.
Well, libretto, yeah, and the libretto is just the text to an opera is all it is. Now he did not write the words to this one. This was done. Let's see, I think I've got a here. The libretto from this comes from a guy, and I don't speak Italian, and there's a lot of Italian names here. I'm probably going to butcher them. Giovacchino Forzano wrote the libretto for Suor Angelica, but he did write the librettos for some of his operas. There was an early opera he wrote called Edgar that's never done that nearly derailed his career because it was not received well. And it's pretty much universally acknowledged now that it was because it was a bad libretto. And after he had that problem with a bad libretto, he resolved to write his own libretto. But I think for some of his subsequent operas he did. But for this particular one, no, it's by Giovacchino Forzano, and most of his operas are librettos by other people.
Yeah. All right, now we're gonna very briefly, we want to talk about the setting of this opera, and you've got a glimpse with this clip of this. I don't know whether this particular opera was staged, but ours is going to be a little different.
Yeah.
It's not going to be theater, but as I understand, this particular opera has been performed in churches before.
Yeah, and it makes total sense because it's an ecclesiastical setting, and so it can do a good facsimile of a convent. Sure. Yeah.
And was there any difficulty? Because I mean, if y'all can picture our the front of the church. Right. Was there, where will the organ be in the same place, Tim? And
no, actually, the organ will be pulled out. You'll see when you're. It's actually we originally were going to keep the organ where it normally sits, but it became very clear very quickly when we started rehearsing in there that I couldn't see or hear anything, so it was very, very difficult to keep everything together. And so we pulled the organ out, and it's going to be the altar is going to be moved back a little bit, so to provide room for the action on the chancel stepped area. And then the organ's going to be behind the cross.
Okay.
Back there a little bit. So basically I'm sitting directly in front of the dean's chair, more or less. And it's angled so that I can see the conductor. It's still a challenge, I won't lie, because where I am now, I'm much closer to the singing, but I'm right where the sound of the organ is the loudest. And even still, it's hard to hear the singers, believe it or not. So that has been a challenge, being in there to keep everything together with the accompaniment on the organ because of the space and the difficulty hearing and seeing. That is a challenge, there's no doubt. Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go into the characters in the play. Let's talk about the characters before we hit the plot. So the ones that, the one I love, Angelica, as a lead, but I think, would you consider that maybe they're like, how many leads in this particular opera would you consider a lead?
Well, there's really, I think really two, without question, there are two. There's Sister Angelica, and then there's the Principessa, or the princess, who is her aunt that comes midway through the opera, and that's the contralto role. So there's definitely those two. The abbess, who's a mezzo soprano, also gets a pretty solid run in this. And there are several other singing roles. There's the monitor, the mistress of the novices, and then a few more minor nun characters that appear throughout. And then there's chorus work throughout as well. As you heard at the very beginning, the opera opens with the sisters in a service, and they're singing as a chorus. There's quite a bit of chorus activity throughout the opera. That works very well in our space because we're using the two sides of the chancel where the acolytes normally sit. That's going to be the choir stalls where you'll see the nuns assembling for service and singing at the very beginning. Now, in that clip we saw there, it appeared that the nuns singing were out of sight off stage. But in this production, you'll actually see them, and they'll be sitting across from each other, which would actually be period correct for a religious institution to be singing across the aisle from each other. So that worked out very well.
kind of describe the difference in the voices, the
Yeah.
difference between a mezzo soprano, a coloratura. We hear so many different descriptions
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
voices.
There are a lot of different voice types, a lot of different voice types. The basic for a soprano is a high female voice, alto is a low female voice, tenor is a high male voice, and a bass baritone is a lower male voice. Those are the big four general categories. But within that, you get a lot of subdivisions and a lot of sub categories. A mezzo soprano, of which there are three really in this opera. There's the abbess, the monitor, and the mistress of the novices. Those are all mezzo sopranos, and that just means a soprano with a slightly lower flavor, just a slightly lower range. They're still a soprano. They're not an alto, but they tend to favor the lower end. And then you get an alto, which is a lower female voice, and then a contralto, which the principessa is here, which is a very low, husky female voice. And that's actually being sung by Zohanairis Torres in our production. She's incredible. And just side note, she's given an entire vocal recital in Tolliver Hall on the 29th of October. So if you like her in this opera, you should come back to hear that. So yeah, so there are different kinds. You've got Wagnerian sopranos, which whose voice types favor Wagner. Coloratura that you mentioned, those are sopranos that are very nimble and can sing rapid fire passage work very effortlessly, things like this. But yeah, so there's tons of subcategories once you dive in.
Okay, so now let's move on to the plot of the story. And remember, you're going to take it to the beginning, and then we'll do a clip. So start us from the beginning to the middle, and then we'll see a clip when the Contessa comes in.
Yeah. So what happens? This takes place in a nunnery. It's set in late 1600s, somewhere in Italy. I don't think it's really specified where it's set, but it's in the late 1600s. And the nuns are assembled for services. And as you can see, a few of the nuns were late and they got chastised for being late. And the service gets out and the nuns that were late get scolded to do their penance. And then the sisters start to sing about what they want most in life. And one of the sisters used to be a shepherdess. And so she yearns to return to seeing her lambs again, things like this. They get sentimental and they talk about what they'd like. One of the nuns says she'd like something good to eat. And Sister Angelica gets holier than thou and says, I have no desires, Paul. And the other nuns are like, no, you're a liar. You do. You want to see your family again. There's something going on with her. They don't really know. And then they start gossiping with each other and they realize that she's actually from a noble family. And they're all chit-chattering about this, like, ooh, what's going on there? What's the story there? So the story continues, and there ends up this this supply, what would you call it? The supply cart basically arrives at the convent, bringing all kinds of goodies, fruit and supplies, and all the nuns gather around and are cheerfully, kind of trying to, talking about the fruit and the various goodies that are there. And then one of the nuns gets a bee sting, gets a wasp sting, and runs in all distraught, oh my God, this poor sister's gotten bee stung. And they go to Sister Angelica, and this is an important point. Sister Angelica is able to help this nun because she's very versed in herbal remedies. Now, that will become very, very important at the end of the opera. But she's able to mix up this herbal remedy that will help the wasp sting, and then we go on. But that's a very important thing to keep in the back of your mind, that Sister Angelica knows her herbal remedies. So then all of a sudden, an expensive looking coach pulls up to the convent. And all the nuns are like, whoa, do you see that coach? Who's that? Who could that possibly be? And it's clearly a very wealthy person, whoever it is. And Sister Angelica sees it, and she realizes immediately that it's probably something to do with her, because her family, again, is noble, and that might be something to do with her. She hasn't seen any of them in years. She's been, I think, in the convent 7 years now, and hasn't heard a peep from any of them. So she's very excited about the prospect of someone from her family paying her a visit. And yes, indeed, it is someone from her family paying her a visit. It's her aunt, the princess, who's coming to deliver her some very, very grim news.
Okay, and let's see if we can. I'm going to run that back just a little bit because it I want to pick it up when she comes in.
Yeah. Eye patch, I love it. Make her look really evil.
Okay, Tim, take
Yeah.
it from there.
Oh yeah.
This is
Right.
the good part.
Yeah. So the coach arrives, and the abbess tells Sister Angelica that yes, it is indeed your family, someone from your family is here to visit you. And it's Sister Angelica's aunt, the princess. And the princess comes in and is always portrayed to be this very, very formidable, imposing figure, very judgmental and unforgiving, and just all around horrendous person. And she comes basically to remind Sister Angelica that she's a disgrace to the family and needs to spend her life in eternal penance and all this kind of stuff. But the particular news she's coming to bring is that Sister Angelica's sister is about to be married. But for the marriage to occur, Sister Angelica has to sign this document giving up any claim to any inheritance at all from the family. So that was what that paper was that she was about to sign. Now, also, Sister Angelica, it becomes clear at this point, is indeed a noble, and she was put into the nunnery because she disgraced the noble family by having a child out of wedlock. That's the center point that we're getting to. And after she had this child, the child was ripped from her right at birth, and she was sent to the convent to spend the rest of her life, and the whole family's disgraced and blah, blah, blah. So that's the story. That's her backstory. And it's been 7 years. So she inquires about what's going on with her son, who would be 7 at this point. Well, and then the princess goes on to tell her, oh yeah, about that. Your son died. And at which point, Sister Angelica just basically just loses it. And she signs the document giving up her rights to inheritance and just basically collapses into a bundle of just despair, complete despair. And then at that point, she sings her very, very famous aria, Senza Mama, which basically talks about how her son died without a mother and how horrible it is about that.
And we have a clip.
Yeah. So this is the most famous aria from the opera.
Yes. Okay. Hang on. We'll just hear a little of it and I want you to pay particular attention to, I went through and picked these clips for specific reasons, but this one is from England, and I want you to look at how they have chosen to stage.
Oh, interesting.
Stage Angelica. And this is the famous clip. I have to turn your volume up a little bit. She's okay, Tim, take it from there.
All right, so we sing this aria, and she's at this point just an absolute just fit of despair and hopelessness and all. And yeah, and so she reaches a point of such desperation that she decides that her only hope is to die so that she can join her son in heaven. And so she uses her knowledge of herbal remedies to concoct a poison. which she takes. And then there's this big dramatic moment where after she does it, she has instant regret because obviously, in the Roman Catholic world, suicide is a mortal sin. And as she's dying, she's worried that she's going to be damned to hell and separated from her son from eternity for committing the sin of suicide. And it just ramps up more and more intense. And then finally, she just begs the Virgin Mary to save her and have mercy on her. And then the opera basically ends with a vision of the Virgin Mary appearing with her little son. And the Virgin Mary then prods the son to run to his mother, and she ends up joining him in heaven, forgiven.
Yes. And that is Suor Angelica in 45 minutes. What do y'all think? But I do want to, before we close, a couple of things. I want to talk about the theme. And there's lots of themes that are running through this particular opera. And perhaps the theme of redemption.
Yeah.
Tim, would you like to?
Oh yeah, 100%. And one of the things I've always thought about this piece, actually, it's easy to paint the princess as just this monster of a figure. We were talking about this a little bit when we were staging this opera here a couple of days ago, the woman who's playing her in this production. I often sometimes wonder in some of the music that the princess sings, even though she appears to be such a cold figure, if there isn't some deep sympathy that she has for her niece in the midst of all this, of what she's going through. You really have to wonder that. I think there probably is down there deep somewhere. And then of course the redemption she has at the end, that even though she's committed the gravest of mortal sins and killing herself, she ends up forgiven and joining her son, and I guess you could say lives ever after in a weird sort of way. Yeah, but that I'd say redemption definitely is one of the themes, because her plight is just so tragic and hopeless, and she's stuck in this nunnery for a mistake she made, and it's very grim through most of the opera until you get to the very end. Yeah, there's not a lot of hope until you get to the very end.
There's also throughout, the ability, and I think I don't want to be women's lib here, okay, but I will be just a little bit.
Be what?
I said I don't want to be women's lib here just a little bit, but I will be, because it says a lot for where women are. I mean, it says
oh yeah, sure.
She had no she had no choice but to go hie thee or get thee to the nunnery. I mean,
oh yeah, 100%. Especially coming from a noble family like that, they could not countenance such disgrace, and one strike, you're out. Basically, a life sentence and effectively prison, really, for one, indiscretion like that. Yeah. Oh, and that would 100% been the way it would have been,
Absolutely. I read something that I think I shared with you that I loved, another quote of Puccini's, where he said that he said that his success was putting great sorrows in little souls. Do you think Angelica had a little soul?
I don't quite the contrary. I wouldn't call her a little soul by any means. Yeah. Maybe it meant somehow more by little souls, but maybe what I interpret that to mean is just figures who would be considered of little social importance in a large scheme of things. I mean, she's a nun put away at a nunnery. If you look at his other characters like Mimi from La Boheme, just this poor, destitute commoner, but they had big souls. They just were not socially very important people. They were the common, commoners.
The other thing that we talked about a little bit beforehand too was that is really about this opera. With Madame Butterfly, you have like acts to get through to the final. With this one, you are dropped down immediately into the whole story. um, which I find fascinating.
Yep.
This is a story. Okay, we have a few minutes left, and let me see if I can pull everybody up on this. Is there anybody that has some questions that you would like to ask Tim about anything, but not about a Canon? Anybody have any questions you'd like to ask him before we sign off? No questions? Okay. Catherine.
Tim, is there anything else you can think of, either related to this opera or to Puccini that we didn't cover that you think would be important for us going?
One nugget about, yeah, well, I think I was talking about this with earlier on before we all got on 100%, just a little bit more about Puccini. He personally, his personal life and some things that went on there, he was the biggest womanizer that just about ever walked the face of the earth. From an early age, he had a habit of with married women, and when he was married himself, he cheated constantly on his wives with singers and students, just left, right, and center. And there was a story. Apparently, this really happened. His wife at one point accused him of cheating on her with their maid. And after the maid heard of this accusation, she killed herself. And then it was revealed on I guess some kind of an autopsy or forensic they did on this woman after the death that she had actually been a virgin. So she was redeemed in death. Like I said, that could almost be an opera plot itself, something like that. Puccini also had, it's crazy. And Puccini himself did have a sister who was a nun. And so he would visit her in the convent. So he had a firsthand experience of convents and how they worked and things like that. And that informed his work on this opera. Yeah. He died in 1924 from, well, he got throat cancer he was a chain smoker of cigarettes and cigars, constant chain smoker. So he got throat cancer. I think the proximate cause of his death, though, is he actually had a heart attack after undergoing treatment for his throat cancer.
You know, it's all drama. I mean, heavy drama, but there is a few moments, and one that I particularly enjoyed was the monitor. You know, you think of a hall monitor. Well, this sister is she is the monitor. She's taking care and she's making sure that these nuns kiss the ground, do all that there. But there's one little sister that I love. And I mean, she has that fleeting moment, and I'm really looking forward to see who plays this one tomorrow night. The one that hides the roses behind her back.
Oh, yeah.
And the sister and the monitor says to her, you know, go to your room, you know.
Oh, yeah. That's that actually right. And she's defiant. Oh, yeah. She's, no, I didn't. And then you'll see on our production, we do the hall door, that goes from downstairs in the cathedral, the door that goes from the clergy vesting room into the main cathedral, the one that I walk out of when I play services right there. Yes. That little action takes place there, and they don't slam, but they shut hard that door as she's told to go to her room. That's what they use for that.
I just think, you know, to me, okay, look, I've been in this place now for 50 years. I've got these roses and I'm going to enjoy them. So I go to my cell. I don't care, you know, but so there's a little tiny bit of all of this drama and tragedy to witness. Yeah. Anyone else got anything they want to add to this?
Not add to it, but can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Tim, in our production and the production on Friday and Saturday, how will they, or will there be an opportunity to present to the audience that English interpretation of the Italian opera? Because, you know, that's what's been helpful while we're sitting here looking at it, is we can see the words versus if you're sitting in the audience at the cathedral, you know, how will you know what the words are?
Oh, yeah. You mean everybody doesn't have fluent Italian?
Yes, yes, yes. Only
No.
half of our audience on Friday and Saturday will have fluent Italian. So,
Right. Well, let me tell you something. I've seen operas in English, and
yes,
usually you cannot understand those.
right.
So, there will be subtitles projected on the back wall underneath the rose window.
Oh, very well done. Very well done.
They've got
Nice.
a high-powered projector, and that's all set up ready to go. So the
Yes.
subtitles will be displayed up there.
Yes, that really is bringing it to, for people to consume very easily, in our world. So that's wonderful.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
And
Good.
I also have a little plot cheat sheet because every time I go to operas, I like to have this with me, just a list of the songs that are in there, the major songs. And Catherine, if you would like one of this little cheat sheet, it has like the opening prayer, Ave Maria, and it says beside it all the sisters in the course of the sisters, and the reprimands, which is there, the monitor does the reprimands. So if you want something like that, Catherine's will email it to everybody, and you might want to take a look at that as well. I think that'll help. This is live chat, Art at Noon. Tim is our fourth participant in live chat. We've had 2 authors. We have had a director of a local play that has joined us to talk about this. And now we've had Tim. So we will be doing another live chat with, Catherine, will you say the name of the live chat and tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the next live chat is going to be with the leader of the workshop that we will be doing, sponsoring at the Cathedral on icons, and it will be with Teresa Harrison. And that is going to be on a Monday, different day than we normally do it, still at noon, a live talk with Teresa Harrison about icons and getting ready for the icon workshop that will be the first week of December at the Cathedral that she will be holding for us.
However, if you don't know what an icon is, you don't know about icon writing, if you will tune in to Art at Noon, we're going to give you an introduction next month in October to icon writing, and hopefully have some discussions with people that actually do icon writing in our church. It's fascinating, and I think you will absolutely enjoy it. Tim, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks so much, Tim. That was wonderful.
That was well done. Extremely well done. Thank you, Tim.
Found a piece.
And
Can I ask a question before
Yes.
I close out? Yeah, I had to take a call. I'm sorry. I may have missed this, but you gave us a teaser that Tim had some story about Puccini that was apparently very entertaining.
I think,
Did you
yeah,
tell it?
Yeah, he did. He told it.
Oh, okay.
You'll have to review the tape. Okay? So
I'll pull on his sleeve at church.
tomorrow night is Old City's production in the St. John's Cathedral of Suor Angelica, and also Saturday. You can get your tickets. All you have to do is just hit the bell, and we've got plenty of opportunity for you to get them. And we are looking forward to seeing everybody. And Patrick,
Thank you, Sandy.
the reception afterwards, Patrick?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it'll be with some wine and some hors d'oeuvres. We also have a new art show, so you have a new installation that you can take a look at. So it's different. So we'll hope you'll join us afterward at the reception.
And the art is for sale, and there will be purchase order forms there for your convenience. I will not be able to be there, but you can purchase.
I'll help you.
Bring it
Yeah.
to the bookstore.
And also Sundays, the bookstore is open. The bookstore is open. This is who produces these things. This is and so certainly, stop by and see us. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Sandy and Tim.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.